Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the very first hobby hangout of the year 2020. 2020! My name is Brian McLaughlin. I'm the physical engineer here at Privateer Press, and today I am joined by Danny and Tony.
Good morning.
Hi, guys.
Hey. So a couple of quick announcements before we get started on our project today. I actually can't see the schedule. Tony, where'd it go? Oh, there we are. First thing, we've got our new stream schedule coming up next week. We've got Dev Hangout on Wednesdays, Get Your Paint on Thursdays, Staff Showdowns on January 14th at 10 a.m. What are we doing for that one?
For the staff showdown?
Yeah.
That's going to be a Mom Pock game. It's going to be Hungerford versus Faye, and we're going to be showing off a couple of new monsters and some of the new units coming out.
Ooh, exciting. And next January 24th, we've got another hobby hangout, this time with Danny doing a really cool project.
Yep, I've got something fun planned for you guys, or a few fun things. So
Nice.
we'll see what we choose.
All right. And subscriptions. RideQuest Loot Coin is coming up at 120 subs. We really getting close to that, but can't quite make it. And just a quick reminder, if you want to re-up with your Amazon Prime subscription, you have to do that every single month. It doesn't just auto-renew like a regular subscription.
Yeah,
so
exactly.
Please do.
Do it.
Do it. Savage Mini Crates. We've got Zalto Toon. January 12th is the last week available, so get that subscription in. He's a really cool mummy dude.
Yeah, that's actually...
You crushed that pronunciation, by the way. Nice work, dude.
I love it's different. It's different for everybody,
Yeah,
too.
I've been listening to a lot of like Conan books and stuff
Nice.
lately, so a lot of these pronunciations are pretty good for me.
Oh, right on.
And it's also the last week available for the King Conan sitting on a big old stone throne. It's a pretty cool model.
Yeah, so I
love that
think
one.
I can't... When is the... I think the 12th is Sunday, so you got to get them by
Yeah.
this Sunday.
Yeah, because it's the 10th today. So, and hobby questions. If anybody has any questions, we've been getting a couple of them here and there. Anything you want to see, anything you're curious about, let us know, and we'll either address it in email or maybe it'll be a stream topic at some point.
Yeah, we're always here to help you guys.
Yeah, we've got a couple of good questions, and kind of excited to show those off. Danny, you got a thing for us?
Yeah, so we're going to be doing, and we announced this last week, or a week before that, we're going to be doing a P3 Grandmaster competition at Adepticon this year. So keep an eye out for that. Start working on your entries now. We're also doing a Display It Painted Army competition as well, where we're kind of piggybacking off of Armies on Parade with Adepticon, and you can display your awesome armies. Those rules are also live. I posted them in the Riot Quest Death Trap article, but we'll be reposting those as well. So
Nice.
definitely start those. We look forward to seeing what you guys got.
I love looking at the Grandmaster.
Yeah, and the
so-
studio. I'll probably be there. We'll be judging and all that. So it'll be awesome.
Yeah. All right. So I guess. We got a straw poll we were going to put up today. Speaking of that future content, first, what we're looking for is just seeing what everybody here is actually interested in doing, seeing on stream. That is. I don't want to do something that may not interest everybody. I want to see what you guys are interested. So first thing, which hobby topics are you interested in learning about? First one is how to deal with some fit issues. Second, magnetizing. How do they work? Reposing models and doing weapon swaps. So things like that. Let us know, and you can pick multiple choice answers, whatever, and hopefully we can figure out what you guys want to see.
Yeah, we've posted the link into our chat, and yeah, we'll be reposting it throughout the show as well. And you can vote as many times as you like for as many topics.
Yeah, so mash whatever answer you want, and you can just really assure that it goes through. All right, so today we're going to be getting back into things. We're going to be starting off on continuing our work on this Temple Flameguard shield that I've got.
Can you kind of remind everybody what we've done to this point? I say we like I had anything to do with it last time.
You've had a lot to do with it, actually. So what we've done so far and what we did last time was...
Don't lie on camera, Brian.
Well, I'm not laying down. I'm clearly sitting. What we did was just went over like making this shield base, just a little bit of basic mold making type stuff.
Basic. I see
Yeah,
what you
yeah.
did there.
With of course, the old googly eye. Laying out your design on there with some pencil work and etching in the rough area, and then doing some putty work. This is what we did last hobby hangout here, and now it's all nice and hard, dry, ready to go. So what you want to do now is just go in there and start carving away, just smoothing it all out. I've done a little bit on this side here. Ugh, first stream of the year. I got to get back into everything
Wearing a
being
whole-
centered. Yep. So just going in.
Excuse me, sorry.
I like using the old 15C blade here. Just a nice little curved one is kind of my general workhorse.
You gotta remember, you gotta clip the back of that to get it to fit into the hobby handle. It's pretty
Yeah.
important, or else it'll chatter.
Yeah, what I've done.
Yeah.
You can just see I just take the blade out of there, and is this auto-focusing?
Yeah, you got it.
Oh, it is. Look at that. Yeah, just snap that off there so it fits nicely in the handle. And away we go.
And we do that instead of putting it in the like scalpel handle, because when you put it in a hobby handle like that, it shortens the blade and keeps it from like chattering and kind of vibrating back and forth. Because when we use those, it's for a scraping motion. Sorry to take away.
No, that's good
I use
information.
that tool all day. We both do. So I think it's a really, really important one to go over as many times as we can. It's one of the most useful tools you can do.
Oh, yeah, that's totally right.
God,
yes,
I sound so tired on stream today.
It is such a petri dish right now. There's so many people. Oh,
Yeah. Oh, and in addition to that, we also have the inclement weather warnings for next
yeah,
week. So,
right. So
there
our
is-
stream schedule might be messed up because we do have the imminent snowpocalypse coming. So just carving away here, digging at things. Oh, yeah, there we go. Digging away at the rough areas, trying to get that smooth top that's just kind of like pyramid shaped on the top there. And then what I've also got here is my handy dandy. Uh-oh.
Nice.
There we go. Got my rotary tool tip here.
Oh, wow,
Just to
we're
make real quick short work of this.
We're definitely
it.
getting some
Get it.
audio feedback buzz from that.
Is that too loud?
It's right in the noise is fine. It's just giving an electric buzz. Just go for it.
We're just
Do
going to
it.
turn down
We
a
got
little
to
bit.
deal with it.
You're making sure you're running that at a pretty slow speed, right? So that you don't gum up. the resin.
Actually, when I'm using it on resin, I prefer a high speed because at a slow speed, it likes to dig a little bit more.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas if I'm using using metal parts to clean, it's better to go at a slow speed because then it files a little bit more nicely. Oh, thank you, Tony. I'll try and get my fingers in there.
You got a diamond burr in there or a carbide? Can you talk about?
It is a
bits?
diamond burr, yes.
So diamond burrs are the same thing that you have in your pin vise, or like the little custom tiny files that you've made.
Yep, yeah, it's the same one. It's just fit into the rotary tool here.
And you tend to use that for metal for your metal cleaning as well, or do you like those carbide?
I actually use this for darn near everything.
Okay, gotcha. So I swear by, but I have to be a bit more aggressive because I'm working on a bit larger scale with the terrain.
Yeah,
I swear by carbides, man, because I gum up those diamond.
So for those who are like me out there and have never done this part of the process with putty sculpting before, this is just grinding down the edges and
Yep. Yeah, it
cleaning them
sands.
up?
It sands super easy. I could just use a hobby knife here. I could use again. I've just got rotary tools stuck in a paintbrush handle, just to like scrape it away. I could use emery boards or sandpaper, but I prefer using this just because I've got it and it's way faster and easier.
okay.
So
Oh,
all
center-
I'm having
center
to
up,
do is just really focusing on where the tip is so that I'm not getting anything else. And like Danny was saying there, you work on the very large scale projects, whereas a lot of my stuff, I'm working on like extreme micro scale. I've actually used this a few times when I'm cleaning some original copies and stuff like that, where I'm like detailing faces and like around eyes with the tip of this thing.
Also, I'm pretty sure I did not swear, guys. I don't know why that's coming up in the chat.
Oh, Didn't you say you swear by the carbide
Oh
tip?
my goodness, you guys are jerks. Oh my god. Well done. As an appreciator of puns, I'm like, how did I miss that?
Puns are amazing.
We're still canceling Danny. Don't worry.
Yeah, right.
Oh, is that still going?
It's still a hashtag people are doing, but I keep surviving.
So much paperwork though.
Yeah, so
Let's see.
just the big thing that I'm doing with this is making sure that I keep the tip at a perfect, like at the angle that I want, and I'm more anchoring my piece against my other finger and the piece itself, so that I'm making sure that everything's nice and stable, and just kind of like doing very small, fine movements.
And I want to mention something that Dorian Clampett's asking about safety glasses. So when running at very slow speed, you can get away with just glasses.
I mean,
right?
like,
and it's a diamond burr. It's not
yeah,
gonna hurt
like I'm doing it right against my finger now, and it's
so,
not doing anything.
And yeah, so we do require safety glasses if you're exactly like Jeff said, if you're not wearing regular glasses. I actually tend to buy my glasses lens. I pay a little bit more and I get them done in tempered glass.
Yep, me too.
Because that's rated. It's actually rated as safety glasses at that point. It's got a little thing on the side of the lens that will, it's actually OSHA rated. That way I don't have to, because it's really a pain in the butt to put safety goggles over your glasses.
Oh,
So
it hurts.
I just try to get tempered glass, and it does the job.
Yeah, I don't like wearing safety glasses over my
I
glasses.
mean, I do it if I'm doing a ton of grinding, or I always put them on over just in case. If I'm working with metal, like if I'm grinding a tool steel or something, I'm always putting goggles on. But
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, it depends on the job. Thanks for asking, though. We appreciate your concern.
Yeah, and as far as like the dust or anything like this, doesn't really kick up a whole lot of dust with this. And what I'm doing is I'm not really like going in and like huffing it or anything. I'm keeping it fairly far away from my face. And then also I'm just going to clean this off a bit here. A little brush with some petroleum jelly on there. Let's grab the part, not the blade. So what I'll do is I'll just take this and it'll put a little bit of petroleum jelly on there and then brush it away. And it's getting all that stuff off of there without really kicking up a whole lot of dust.
Is that because the jelly kind of grabs all the
kind of
clumps
granules?
it up.
Yep.
Okay. It gets it sticky so that it just kind of plops off of there onto the brush.
Yeah, and the other side of it too is the petroleum jelly, just because of the sheen that it puts on the putty or whatever part you're working on, really helps pop out any rough spots or anything that you've got going on there.
Oh, nice. Okay.
You can see a lot of your imperfections whenever it's slightly more glossy.
Yeah, so you can see it's a little rough still.
I do a lot of larger sculpting in Fimo.
Oh yeah.
Or super sculpey, right? Like a polymer clay. And a polymer clay doesn't like to stick to itself once it's dry, or once you've baked it.
Yep.
But you can actually add Vaseline to it and then wipe it off, and the residue or petroleum jelly, the residue will allow more polymer clay to stick, but also it allows you to see any imperfections because it's glossy.
Yep.
So you do that all the time, and I'll go back in and like wet sand parts down that I've sculpted out of Fimo after I can see it when it's a little glossy.
Yeah, I also use a lot of petroleum jelly for a lot of the fitting parts together. You put one side, like petroleum jelly on one side, and then do your work on the other side, and you kind of like cram the putty in there kind of a thing, and it won't stick to the one side, and it'll stay on the joint where I wanted it to stay exactly.
Hi, Lyle.
Oh, hi, Lyle.
I miss you.
Wow.
Hey.
Oh.
Hope you're well, man. Happy holidays.
Yeah, we're kind of getting caught up in the chat here a little bit. We got a question from Donald Lumley. How did you make that Menifix so nice, Donald? That was a previous episode of Hobby Hangout from last December,
Yes.
last decade. And if you go check that out, you'll be able to watch Brian and exactly the process that he used to sculpt this very shield.
Yeah, the short story of it is just putting a bunch of putty on there. I've been playing Protectorate for many, many, many years, so I'm quite familiar with Menifixes and how to draw them, how to paint them. So just practice. And a lot of it, too, is when you're doing any putty sculpting, there's like additive and subtractive technique. And when I'm doing putty, additive is basically just adding material, and subtractive is taking away material that you've already got there. And more often than not, what I'll do is I'll put a little bit more putty than I want on a project, and then wait for it to cure, and then come back in after it's hard, and then carve away the excess stuff. And
Oh, interesting. Okay, that's
Yeah,
cool.
and every modeler or model maker has kind of their own preference, right? Like,
Definitely,
You know,
yeah.
I've mentioned
No, everything should be standardized to one way, no creativity allowed.
it's like there are 12 ways to skin a cat, right?
Danny, stop skinning cats.
You not
like,
heard that
don't-
phrase? It's a phrase, I swear.
Is that what that yelling
Danny's
was
now
up
feeling
here?
challenged. I'm going to find that 13th way, I promise.
Right, but oh my God.
Danny does not skin cats.
I totally
no.
do. You're wrong. Dogs, baby, dogs. So I've mentioned I come from a film background, right? And there are a lot of model makers that kind of work different ways, right? Like there are some that come from more of an architectural background, and they'll build up to the point,
Yep.
right, where they'll slowly go up until they hit that mark that they need to do. And I'm the opposite. I'm kind of like you, where I work a lot more subtractively. I work large and I taper back in. And it's really just personal preference. I recommend you try, both methods when you're doing stuff like this.
Yeah.
And see what works for you.
We've definitely had some seriously heated debates on things like that over in the mold shop. We're working on stuff, and just there have been some pretty big arguments that have come up, and it's like, stop ragging on my technique. It works. It gets the
Right.
job done. And that's
Right.
ultimately what it is working on something until you're happy with it, and if it gets to that point, it's good.
No, it got to the point like at Disney when I was working with Imagineering, I'd always have to have a part of a thing I was sculpting done, like a little section of it finished, because an art director would come in and like freak out because I'm like dumping expandable foam on stuff, and they're like, "What is happening?" Because I work so broadly and taper back in at the end that I'd have to be like, "You can't just say to an art director, hey, don't worry about it." Like at a place like Disney where there are like millions on the line, you can be like, "Hey, don't worry about it. I got it. I swear." Right? You have to be like, "It's gonna look like this. I used this technique to make it look like this. I
Yep.
promise." Right?
Yeah,
So they come down.
it'll get there. I'm
No,
not done.
I had somebody walk in when I was doing, expandable urethane foam, and I was just dumping it on a tree,
Man.
out of a bucket, because I needed to build something out. Like it had this big hole in it, so I needed to fill the hole. And so, he's just like, what are you doing?
I mean, it's kind of like somebody coming in the middle of you cooking Thanksgiving dinner. It's like, what are you doing? This turkey is raw. It's like, I'm not done yet. Like,
Don't worry about it.
Please stop. All right.
Thanks, Darth Arcana, for the sub.
Oh, nice subs. Yeah, so I'm just using another scraper tool here. What I've done is just have a little dental tool that I've got in here, and just went at it with a grinder and ground it down to a nice fine edge. It's kind of like what do we call it? A rake?
Little
is what
scraper.
a little scraper rake type tool. And it works really good for getting right into tiny little details where you want to get right into this middle section. And
There's no more autofocus. I had to lock in that focus, so it
you
wasn't
locked it?
bouncing back and forth.
Okay,
Yeah,
so
you
it's
gotta,
right
you got to
about-
find it with your hands.
all right. My people hands? All right.
Did Jordan betray you on stream, Tony?
So yesterday,
I love Jordan.
Striker is pointing out that yesterday Jordan was painting a miniature. He didn't know what color to paint it. Green was one of the suggestions, and then he said he didn't want to paint green. And I pulled my producer authority and told him that he had to paint green because he always paints red or whatever he
Red
wanted
or
to paint.
purple, yeah.
So we started painting this nice green. We go on the episode about a half an hour later. I start going off on some pseudo intellectual diatribe about whatever, and I think that it's just total silence. And I think that everyone's really into what I'm saying and paying attention. And it turns out that while I was busy talking, I wasn't realizing that Jordan had just started painting over the green with red and had just completely covered everything he had done up to that point.
Can we
with a
also
completely
just
different color.
take a moment to realize you just used the sentence pseudo-intellectual
Yeah, that's how I-
diatribe?
That's how I roll.
It is
My
far
goodness,
it's far
Tony.
too early for such big language.
My goodness. Who do you think you're talking to, Tony?
We don't-
Jeez Louise.
We don't take kindly to big words like that
Our
around
community
here.
is smart folks.
It's like And here I am, secretly a college professor at the same time, and you will never hear me say anything like that.
We have a question, an older question, a question from Brian Connolly earlier. I think he was talking about when you were using the grinder. He wants to know if is that grinder good for cleaning up minis, or is it too aggressive?
I use this grinder for minis. I use it for, like I was saying, I have used it on originals. So it's like 2 steps before it actually gets to like production pieces. So it is like the original piece. I've used it on that kind of stuff.
Yeah, Brian lives and dies by his Dremel. And a tool that I recommend that Brian actually hates, but that's because Brian, in my opinion, that's because you and I have debated this, but he's done Dremel for so many years now that he has a very, very soft touch. Now, for those of you that might not have I have a very heavy hand. So when I'm cleaning minis, you can buy these soft abrasive rubber like tools. You know what I'm talking about, right? The ones that the ones that you hate, right?
Well, hate's a really strong word.
I swear by them because they're these like soft, flexible rubber guys with a little bit of abrasive grit. And if you're doing metal and you're just trying to take down flashing, Brian will be infinitely faster than I will at this because he has the touch to do a diamond burr.
A lot of it is just
day in, day out, right?
It's
but if you're having trouble and you're worried about screwing up your model, to practice, you might pick up some of these. They're called like soft abrasive discs, or soft abrasive, and they can come in like little cone shapes.
Yeah.
And like I said, there are a million ways to do it. And if you can do it with a diamond burr, you should because it's so much faster. But.
So it's really hard to show just with the camera here, but like it is a really fine. It is the finest burr that I could get for this.
Oh, sure.
And just because I actually happen to have this and it seems relevant, let's just get this guy going. A nice low speed. I could actually probably almost stop this with my finger if I wanted to, and going in, and you just kind of go parallel to the part. And so when I'm cleaning a mold line, what I'll do is, I don't have a pen. Okay, that's fine. You've got your mold line going. Actually, I'll use this instead. So pretend this is your mold line. Instead of going completely 90 degrees to it like that, what you want to do is kind of clean at an angle like this and go kind of crossways, kind of cross-hatching it back and forth like that. And that seems to work pretty well just for zipping down a mold line, especially on a metal miniature.
Now, why is that?
It just seems to be the best way that it takes down the mold line without really, like, because whenever you have a mold line, it's where the two halves of the mold come together, and they're never going to sit 100% perfectly flush and straight with one another. What they'll often do is they'll shift a little bit where one side of the mold is a little bit more. Everybody's seen that on miniatures. It's just what happens. And then if you come from the top, like the higher side up, what you want to do is you want to carve that down. And if you're coming at it from an angle, it tends to feather out a little bit better.
Okay, gotcha.
And blends better than just taking it down straight one way.
And they teach us that when we're sanding like larger resin parts, like especially the stuff I make for terrain. A good thing Brian does is he was showing you how he crosses. He goes up one direction and then kind of goes back the other way. And he kind of does a crisscross pattern, and that will actually feather it even more, especially on a rounded surface. It's really important, and especially on bigger things, like some of the terrain resin stuff I've been doing.
Exactly. And also the other thing to remember is, like I definitely use this for a lot of my work, but it's not the only tool in my box. If I'm finding like that's not taking something down, I'll be swapping constantly. Like you can see my little workspace here is just a hodgepodge mess of tools everywhere.
I should take a photo of my workbench.
I've got like
so bad.
all my little sculpting tools just there. I've got emery boards all over the place. So sometimes, like I'll use the grinder for a lot of things, but then I'll come in with a knife and do a lot more like carving. So like if I really have to take part away, I'm going to wreck this model, but that's okay. So you can just carve off little flakes of metal and really dig into things, and then go back in with the burr and smooth it out. If you want to come back in with just the little handheld one, you can just go in there and just get rid of some of that shine.
One safety thing also when you're using a Dremel is to always move if it's spinning, move it, like pull the bit the opposite direction that it's spinning across your part.
Yeah, because otherwise it'll catch and
it'll
go.
throw it around the piece and
Yep.
it'll stab you in the finger.
Yep, it can do that for sure. So I hope that answers your question about the burr and the rotary tool thing. Where were we on this? You know what? I'm going to get that one little quick area inside this area.
I'm reposting that straw pull link.
Lost my project. Of course, it's a tiny little...
Do you got it? Do you need a hand?
Oh, got it. There we go.
So we're doing a straw poll
Yeah.
about what we want to see Brian do next. So the link's
Yeah.
up there. Feel free to vote.
Yeah, and I mean, it's pretty general issues. What do we got? Reposing. Oh,
Sweet.
I've got some pretty fun reposes. Some of my most fun projects are reposing the plastic jack kits.
Use boiling water.
Usually a hairdryer or a heat gun.
Nice.
Or I'll just cut them up at the joints and then just
Yeah.
do some pretty extensive stuff that way. Nice.
When you do that, I should bring in my Dracodile.
Oh, yeah.
The zombie one.
Yeah, we'll
There's
show that
a lot
one
of
up.
crazy pose stuff on it.
All right. You know what? I'm going to call this good enough because, quite honestly, like, whenever I'm doing any sort of putty work, I could work on this for hours. Like, some of the things that we've done over in the shop there, it's like we've spent sometimes weeks on an individual model, days on just a part if we have to do any major resculpting for anything. So we're just going to move on because this is good enough for government work.
And Brian, we're getting a question from Gabrielle Justy about if you mesh traditional sculpting with the digital sculpting, like the resin prints, and I know you do a lot of brown putty work to help with some of the fits. Mm-hmm. Like you'll grind back and then add some putty in there. But you want to speak to that a little more?
A little bit is what I can say. I don't do any digital sculpting myself because I just really haven't put any
Right.
time
I think
into
more of the question
learning,
is like
but-
you do some post work with putty on the prints after the fact, right?
And Gabriel, if
yeah.
you're still with us, like just if you can kind of narrow the question a little more, just so we have a little more context in what you're asking, would be helpful as well.
So it's kind of a hard question because we can't really talk
there's
too
some
much.
stuff we can't really
there's
tell
some
about our
things that we
process.
can't really say. But
Secrets.
yeah,
We have
secrets.
some little trade secrets that make our stuff pretty awesome.
The base process is the 3D sculptors will do their work. They'll do the majority, like vast majority of it. It'll get printed out, and it'll come to us to do some of the fit issues, final cleaning, any tiny little adjustments that are just. It comes down to a time thing of is it going to be easier for us to do it physically, or is it going to be faster to go back to the studio and get.
Is it quick to just move this rivet over a little bit?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. That's actually one of the things that we are incredibly good at is just
Riveters Guild.
Yeah, the Riveters Guild. Yeah, snipping off rivets and relocating them the number of times it's like, this is going to be right in the middle of a mold line. Can we just move that rivet?
Right.
It's like, yes.
We need to put our pour spout right there.
Yeah.
Awesome.
So I'm actually okay. There's a
Nice.
question.
Good work, Tony.
I'm trying. I really am.
Listening?
Says so he's got a model that he wants to resculpt, but he's a little intimidated since it's metal. And I
Yes.
don't know if you have any advice for.
A jeweler's saw.
Okay.
Yes.
It's,
Or just approaching
it kind of
metal.
looks like a really, really, really itty bitty tiny hacksaw, like with itty bitty fine blades. Like they are like.
My most used tool. I have an insider. There's an insider I wrote that I swear is up. And if it's not, I'll check. But I did a whole insider on jeweler's saw. It is my most used tool.
Yeah.
I use it because I have a jeweler's bench pin, which you can make, and I showed how to make it on this insider. Go look for like Danny Samuels jeweler's saw inside, or Google that and see if it comes up. But like, yes, making a bench pin, which is like this weird piece of plywood with a slit cut in it to hold your part against as you cut, and then getting a jeweler's saw. You can get them for like $7 off of Amazon. Sorry, I totally got really excited about jeweler's saw and steamrolled over you. It's like my favorite tool to talk about ever. But you're so right.
Yeah, no, a jeweler's saw is amazing. Back before we did the resculpt of the Avatar of Menoth, I did my own conversion of it to like bulk them up and beef them up a little bit more. And the amount of cutting, like of torsos and stuff, you can do some really intricate stuff.
Because the blade is so thin, it allows you to really, really curve it inside of something like metal.
Yep.
So that allows you to do a lot of intricate resculpting. If I need to cut off a hand and then resculpt that hand to do, to be in a different way, right? I can do that with the jeweler's saw. If I need to go into a torso and just pull one little section of it out, or cut off a leg around where the torso would be, it lets you do that. Now there are some like tricks to it, like you want to, especially if you're cutting something thin, you want at least 3 teeth, because picking your blade is an art in itself, right? Like what grit of a blade. The standard that we always recommend is 03 would be the number. That's at least, that's what I tell people. I'm getting more technical than, but 03 will keep you safe with all metal parts. But you want like 3 teeth per thickness of material. It doesn't matter. I'm getting all excited about the greatest tool ever made.
I don't know. I've got my, I like my little burrs and stuff there. Those are my greatest tools. But just a jeweler's saw, a hobby knife, and just patience. Like that's one of the biggest things I can definitely say about hobbying is just patience. Try not to rush anything. It'll get done when it gets done. And if you're just persistent and keep working at it, it'll come out amazing. And I definitely prefer working in plastics and resins myself, but the metals can be done. I've done a really cool one where I reposed the Cara Sloan model so that she's not holding it all up in the air and she's actually aiming down. And it required a fair amount of cutting and clipping to get her to hold that rifle.
Mm-hmm. Well, the thing I like about the jeweler's saw too is it can go through every material. Like I'll use it. I'll switch blades over. You can get a gritty blade, and I'll switch over and do it for like I'll go through MDF. I'll go through resin with it. Like I can't live without it. I even have a little thing of Burr Life literally hot glued to my desk. It's like this wax stick that you buy and it keeps your blades alive. So I just run your blade through this wax. Oh, I use a jeweler's saw for, and that's just from the film background. Like all of us have jeweler's saws on our desks at all times because we can just. It's easier for me to, I don't want to walk across the shop to go to the bandsaw if I don't have to, and I can make such an intricate cut with the jeweler's saw.
Yeah.
That I. Anyway, sorry, you got excited about my very favorite tool ever.
For jeweler's saws, do you prefer a high arch wire saw or a flat shoulder? Danny's going to have to take this one because I really don't know.
I don't understand that. Sorry.
I'm not familiar enough with them. I just saw
I don't know the verbiage that you're using there. Do you prefer a high arch wire saw? I think that's what I'm talking. Like, that's what I think you're referring to. What I am saying a jeweler's saw is with high arch wire saw. That if you look up jeweler's saw, what I'm doing will come up, or what I'm talking about will come up. It's I don't just use like the solid blade, thick piece of steel.
Yeah,
it's like this thin little wire looking. Yeah, look that up, Tony, if you wouldn't mind.
Yeah, I mean, I know what it is, and I know it's called a jeweler's saw, but
yeah, that's it.
Yeah,
German style. Yeah, there you go. That's the one.
Yeah, is that showing on stream by chance?
No, it's not.
Tony's gonna bring one up.
Thank you, Tony.
Let me just get a picture of it real fast.
And what I'm doing here is just laying down more putty work. I've already scratched up the surface a little bit to help the putty adhere there. And what I'm using is just a little soft clay shaper tool. It's a little bit of a rubber tip on it. Doesn't stick to the putty, and it works really good for just pushing things around, smoothing it out. And I'm just putting in that rim around the outside edge that I can then apply some rivet work to. Just like that. And then I've got a whole bunch of different tip sizes. Forgetting exactly what I need to do with it.
Man, I love those rubber tools.
They're so handy. And again, I could probably do this for hours just getting this exactly right. One thing that I definitely notice and recommend if you're doing any sort of putty work is keep in mind the time that you've been working on things. Because with any of your putties that you have, when you first mix them together, they're quite a bit softer. And then as time goes, it gets harder and harder and harder, right? So what you end up doing is like there are some projects where it works better while the putty's soft, and then as you're getting putty gets harder, it lends itself to more, fine detail kind of stuff. Like for laying down rough work like this, you want to keep it nice and soft, so you can blend it a little bit better and it'll come out smoother. But once it gets a little bit harder, that's when I'll focus a little bit more on getting like hard edges or trying to sculpt in different things. That's actually something I have a little bit of a hard time with on stream right now, is because sitting here mixing putty and waiting for it to get to that exact stream or exact hardness that I'm looking for will just doesn't really lend itself to streaming particularly well.
Okay, I was able to grab some images of the controversial jeweler's saw. So this is what Danny is talking about.
And then the thing on the right is what's called a bench pin, and that clamps onto your desk. What that allows you to do is, you see that little slit in it? You put your part and you use your thumb to hold it over that slit, and then you can just cut into that slit. And what that helps you avoid is you're not holding it with your hand and trying to cut at it, and it's wobbling around in your hand. That gives you a firm surface to cut against, but like a hole where your blade goes.
So it's kind of like a bandsaw kind of a thing, but more
it kind of makes it a handheld scroll saw at that point.
Yeah, scroll
right?
saw. That's what I was thinking
about. And those are super easy to make. Like I said, I wrote an article on it, and brother Chaplain Keg is bringing up a good point. Like a lot of the time, you can. You don't need to do crazy angle changes, but I like the ability to do so with one tool, right?
Yeah.
Like if I can always cut very straight with a jeweler's saw, especially when I have a bench pin, it really helps with that. But I like the ability, if I need to not have to switch tools and grab another thing, and just have the jeweler's saw that can kind of do it all. Because it can also cut, I can cut steel with it, I can cut resin with it, I can cut pewter with it. And I don't really have to change blade that often if I'm using an 03. So it's, it's sweet.
Yep.
And it's cheap. They're cheap. I mean, I have a nice one. Because I just use it so much, I bought like a really good one from a jeweler's store. But
yeah, I regularly just go hit up, and it's surprising the amount of stuff that you can find just in the jewelry section that works really well for modeling and conversions.
Yeah, going to your local craft store and going to the jeweler's supply section, there are a lot of really good small pliers, stuff like that.
One of my favorites is actually the jeweler's chains, because a lot of the protector stuff has chains and things on it, and I want having like an actual bit of movement. So going and finding just the exact same size chain and then just snipping out the chain and then replacing it looks really cool. 28 millimeter arms and heads. I've never really had a problem with that when it's really tiny like that. You're talking the jeweler saw, right?
Yeah, I believe that RuneWise is referring to cutting off the arms and heads with the jeweler saw.
I've never really had a problem with it, as long as you're factoring in that there is going to be some material removed. So if you're trying to like cut off, I don't know, an arm, and you need to keep one half of it, try and keep the blade so that it's removing the part that you don't need.
This is why I'm saying the jeweler's saw is so awesome. Is you can get, and it, you might snap a few blades, but you can get a blade that is just microns thin.
Yeah.
Like with a jeweler's saw, they sell just the thinnest blades ever that you're not gonna, the tolerance, like, we had a challenge at my previous job where we got, we took a chemical can, like an old mineral spirits can that was all dried out, and we tried to see if we could cut the instruction letters out with a jeweler's saw. Like I'm talking millimeters thin. It was like an activity we did for fine control, where we would cut like the warning label letters out of that steel, and that's how we practiced.
That's on-the-job training.
Yeah, and it was like, no, it was just a good way to practice, trying to cut out and not. I'm not talking cut through the letter. You want to be able to see the like blue letter.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
It was. Yeah, I mean, Stryker 911. I only got it once. Like I was not. Like I said, I have a heavy hand. But some of the guys that I worked with were jewelers before they got into model making, and they were just. It was insane to see what they could do with a jeweler's saw.
Yes.
And that's kind of how we trained. But that's the nice thing about being able to move to a super fine blade. But like I said, there's no right tool. There's no perfect tool. Like it is.
Yep.
I gravitate towards the jeweler's saw.
Yeah. And if I'm doing something like that and I'm finding that the jeweler saw is taking out too much material, what I'll end up doing is just taking a really sharp blade, brand new fresh one, and just slowly cutting and cutting and cutting and cutting. And eventually you'll get through whatever you need. But
Right.
Blades are cheap and expendable. They can just get dull and then get turned into some other tool.
So you're working on your border right now for.
Yep. And I'm actually getting to a point where I'm only going to do this little bit because it's just time. So then a couple of different methods here for putting the rivets on it. I've got just a regular old mechanical pencil here. If you can see the lead coming out of there. If you take the lead and just push it all the way back in, and I'm holding the thing, the eraser end, so that it just kind of pulls back, and that'll kind of pull it back in a little bit. So what you can see, maybe, yeah, if you see there, it's got kind of a nice little hole in the end there. It works really nicely for doing really quick and easy rivets. And all you do is just, and this is what I did for the actual conversion that I did long ago.
Nice.
Is just using a mechanical pencil. I'm a pretty big proponent of just using cheap found objects to get the job done.
Yeah, I actually got so I'll get those I'll collect like what's it called? The somewhat nicer drafting mechanical pencils, and you can actually unscrew them. They have that metal tip, and you can unscrew it, and I'll actually glue. I have different sizes that I've collected over the years glued to brass tube. So I have one on each end, so I can just pop rivets into things. Brian, we should talk about this awesome question that Gabrielle Justy is asking.
Yes, absolutely.
I really want to jump in on that. Do you want to take a crack at this? The Shin Dracodile.
The Shin.
I want to always encourage ambitious
Making a Shin
conversions.
Dracodile.
There are part of why we do this stream is to make these sorts of projects far less daunting, right? And you should not be scared of anything, because you can always, with enough practice and with enough time, fix anything you screw up, right?
Yep.
And something that I'd recommend if you really want to try, and I made an article on converting a Dracodile as well. It's an insider from way back. But you can always take something like Sculpey or like a polymer clay and play with it on the model before you assemble it, and just see if you have the hand skills at that point to do the type of conversion you want, because that stuff's not going to stick well to the resin, and you can always just pull it off. And then you're not sculpting in like brown putty or something that will cure forever on it. So then when the time comes and you feel comfortable with your method, you can pull all that off and then do it in the brown putty permanently.
Yeah, and another thing, dry fit. Dry fit, everything.
So if you're doing a big model, doing it all with pins first, thick pins, so that you can actually just pin it together with like sticky tack or whatever.
Glue tacking.
Or I'll use hot glue sometimes if it's a big enough model, because hot glue you can just squirt rubbing alcohol on it and the hot glue will peel right off of the resin. So I'll dry fit things to see how it works before I do anything. And yeah, I know that like destroying a 100 plus model hurts really bad, but that's where like some of these some of these practice techniques
Yeah.
come in handy, where
Well,
you can practice on it before you actually go in and do the final, right?
Yeah.
So I didn't know that, but I do want to throw in my 2 cents from the philosophical side, which is that if you're new at doing these kind of conversions and you have an ambitious project, by all means, like, do it. If you want it and you want to go into it, do it.
Yep.
Having said that, be aware of the fortitude and patience you are going to have to manifest to get through that project.
Danifest.
You're no. Dan does that all the time, where he's just like
I think it's like
Bring it
a
up.
neurosis at this
yeah,
point.
and that's it has just become my standard response. No, but
Danarchy.
it's like, man.
To Kadand.
Oh,
You're
geez.
welcome.
All right.
I'm on fire.
all right, let's
I'm on
get-
fire.
Let's get that hashtag.
I gotta.
Another thing that I would recommend, if you're like, for example, that Dracodile, if you want to really get something like that, start small. Try, like, everybody's got the big old bits box of random things that are just kicking around in your bin. Try a technique, like if you want to, I don't know, work on Godzilla's scales or something like this idea, or as like big back fins or something like that. Put a small version on some other random bit and just practice it before you put it onto the big one.
Well, you know what we should show
What?
sometime, because you can use the parts of the model that already exist to your own advantage, right? By doing like stamps. So like if you're trying to match the scale texture from one part, you can smear, like petroleum jelly all over the part, shove a bunch of epoxy on it, and then pop it off, and you've actually
Yep.
created a texture stamp, which will make it so much easier to like replicate that texture. So you can actually use, there are a lot of safe methods that we might be able to show you to use what's already sculpted to make life a lot easier for you. Silicone caulk, you can put
Yes.
you can put petroleum jelly on your model and then smear a little bit of silicone caulk on there to make a flexible stamp.
Yep. Or just having, like, if you want to just practice the part and you've got like putty or whatever to throw away, just to practice it. It's putty's cheaper than the $100+ model. Put a layer of putty down there, or not putty, petroleum jelly, and just try and sculpt it on there, knowing that it's probably going to pop off, but the practice is good. If it ends up working, leave it to cure. Wait for it to be 100% cured. Let it pop off, clean off the area, and then super glue it back on.
Oh, dude, I saw the coolest trick. Sorry to geek out while you're doing this, but so I've started to talk to one of our previous sculptors who still does a bunch of stuff for us, Brian Dugas. But I've been
Oh,
like,
Dugas, I
and
miss
so
him.
I've never met him, but I'm like a big fan of his work, and so we've been chatting a bunch on Facebook now. And he taught me the coolest technique the other day because I was asking him about sculpting fire, but he'll actually like smear out parts onto a piece of plexiglass with petroleum jelly smeared onto it, or he uses chapstick actually.
Yep.
And then right as it gets to this like leather hard stage, he'll kind of sculpt some of the detail on it.
Yep.
But right as it gets to this leather hard stage, he peels it off and drapes it over
Yep.
the model. So he'll do that for capes or whatever, but he'll also use like Fimo to like prop up the cape at the angle that it needs to go. So like you can do that with all sorts of stuff, like gator skin cloth or whatever. You can sculpt that flat on a sheet, then peel it up right when it's leather.
Oh. All right.
Did you just stab yourself?
No.
Darn.
I see where my finger was?
Fingerprint,
Yeah,
loser.
Yeah. No, so what I'm doing right now is, sorry to interrupt on that one. I'm just showing a different type of rivet that we can do. And it's just taking a little tiny ball of putty here, putting it down, and then just pressing it and then pushing in to create a little bit more of a raised rivet. They are way more intricate to do, and they're quite frankly a pain in the butt. But
What you just saw was somebody that does this day in day out screw up. Like like what we're talking about. It happens to the best of us.
happens.
Also, look at how quickly he fixed it. Wow.
Oh no, actually, I haven't fixed anything yet.
That's fine.
But it's
It will be fine.
It's a pretty quick fix, honestly. It's just going in there and just smoothing it over with my little clay shaper tool, just to get those fingerprints out of there. And with this project in particular, the shields, because I have to do the entire unit, I'm planning on doing a quick little mold of this. So you want to get this thing as perfect as possible, because if I am just like, oh, I'll clean it later, I'm going to have to clean 12 more of them
Right.
down the line,
No,
and I would
you
rather
gotta-
just do it
That
once.
is the thing where you got to mold that, right? You can
Yep.
even just do a really quick one, like with silicone caulk if you're at home. Like
Yeah, silicone caulk. I've got there's this stuff that I found, and I've had it for years, and I don't even remember what it's called, but it's this microwavable rubber.
There's the stuff that you put in the hot water.
Yeah.
and that's called Oyumaru is what that's called. It's a thermoreactive silicone. It reacts.
Yeah,
to heat.
it's-
it almost feels like a hot glue stick.
Yeah, it's completely reusable, and I just made a quick mold out of that, and seems to work.
I constantly use that for terrain for texture stamps. I'll say, like I'll go out, find a cool piece of tree bark,
Oh, yeah.
get water from the coffee machine or the water heater,
Oh.
walk out with a coffee cup into the woods, put that stuff in, smear it on the tree, peel it off, and now I can like push it onto an epoxy putty or like our brown putty and make trees. Right?
You're just going around just copying trees, huh?
Yeah,
Okay.
I have an archive of tree molds because I'm a crazy person. Yeah.
All right, so that's the idea there. You can see find that sweet spot. Just a little bit of an extra rivet that I'm putting in there. This is just an example kind of a thing, but it is what it is. Now, at this point here, what I'm probably going to do is just set this aside. We'll just assume I go around and do the rest of the thing, or leave yourself a place so that you can continue grabbing it without messing up the rest of my putty work. And then I'll set it aside, go do something else for a little while. If you want to help out with curing putty a lot faster, put it in a little heat box. The way we've got a few of them around here that are literally just an empty paint can with a hole cut in the side, and one of those like heat lamp pot light that you can get from any hardware store.
Yeah, for like people use it for like heating their aquariums too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, just put that over the top of the paint can, and it gets really hot in there. And what that'll do is it'll help cure the putty a lot faster. Instead of having like several hours up to a day for this stuff to cure, I can get it down to, I did some work this morning where it was like an hour and a half, and it was ready to sand and finish off, and it was done in no time whatsoever. What do we got here?
I was gonna say
no.
we do have some P3 kit bashers.
Oh yeah,
to show
yeah,
off
yeah. I
this
want to
week.
see some of these P3 kit bashers.
So tell us what P3 kit bashers is.
Oh, anybody who's doing some really cool conversion work, they can use the hashtag P3 kit bashers, and we'll get to see what everybody's really cool work is from the community. Hopefully, some of the things that we've been showing off on stream, either myself or Danny's hobby hangout. What do we got, Tony?
All right, here we go. So this is Half Bot
cool.
One's heavy Kador cannon.
Oh, that's so cool.
And this one, this is based off of the kit that we have for sale that Danny did last year. It was the first hobby hangout where he
Yeah.
built a modified Kador cannon.
Yeah, and those are still available. You can pick that up.
Yeah, just right in
Pretty
our
cheap way to
right in our
get some of
online
those-
store.
Some of those resin bits that are harder to get.
Yeah, and I like the little
This is
wall.
awesome.
The wall on the base too is.
Yeah, that's a really nice touch. That's a really nice touch.
Yeah,
Oh look,
dig
yeah, he
that.
picked up one of the wall kits too and put that there. That's awesome.
Yep.
Love that.
On the little sandbags.
Very, very cool.
Is that the Hyperion shoulder? Yeah, that's the Hyperion shoulder on the top
Looks
there.
like it.
I like
That's
that. It's a nice
awesome.
little backing for it.
Very, very cool.
Fun.
Thank you so much for doing that.
Yeah.
That's awesome. We'd love to see this stuff.
All right, this next one's pretty fun too.
That's so good.
We got some
lead foot and treads.
custom
conversion.
Yeah, that
lead
is
foot and
some-
treads.
Awesome.
That is some really good stuff. That really looks like putty work on the
No,
barrel
that's
thing.
good putty work up there.
Yeah, that's really good.
To
Very
Drakias
well done.
Dragoon. This is one of our regular viewers.
That's awesome.
Look at that.
I like his styrene work too for the treads.
Yeah, and the exhaust port and everything.
Yeah.
And I like the use of the.
Oh, sorry, I'm gonna go back.
Yeah, thank you. I like the use of the old ironclad or grind. Is that? The plastic bottle in the middle as a base. That's a really nice touch. I love kit bashing like
Yeah,
that.
that thing's super sweet.
Yeah.
And so he actually did two versions of the lead foot and tread. So here's the other one. Because he did awesome. Like looks like a masthead. I forget what they call it on the front of a boat. Like he's running over that.
That's awesome.
You think that's Scar's boat?
Perhaps.
Yeah, that'll show her.
Yeah, right.
That's cool. I like that how it's coming off of the edge there too.
No, that's. Oh, and look at the little bit of styrene work for the key on the inside of the tread there, just to hide that key socket.
Oh, sure. Yeah. Nice.
Very clever. Good use of that.
All right, and then our last one. This one's a little bit of a mystery when you first see the picture here, but it shows this nice detail.
Mm-hmm. Oh, look at the glow effect in there too.
Yeah, it's really well done.
Yeah.
Okay. Wait, are those parts from Monpok on the side?
Kind of
looks like something from Defender X. Or
yeah,
kind of X, but one of the.
I think it's Defender X. It kind of looks like, but I don't think it is.
It's really cool.
And then there's a finished piece,
so awesome.
It's like a levitating
hover conquest.
Hover conquest. Thank you.
When you really want to leave
Yerrick
no tracks.
Spiegel.
Oh my God! You want to leave no tracks?
Wow.
Jeez.
Did you imagine the thrust that hover thing would need?
Well, trying to keep it upright too, right?
Oh,
balance.
Oh, and it goes to fire that big old cannon and just like shoots it back far away.
Man.
The bullet just kind of like falls out of the barrel and the jack just goes flying back.
But it can use it for like free disengagement, where it just shoots a cannon into space to like shoot itself backwards. Like,
yeah. Oh, that looks
jump
so
around
good.
the battlefield by just popping off random like shots.
All right.
That's awesome, everyone. Thank you very much. And
Yeah,
if you,
thank you for
if
sharing.
you want to show off your work, please hashtag P3Kitbashers with photos of your projects.
All right.
And you can also follow what we're doing too on our Instagram, which is privateer_press_terrain. Jeez Louise, long week. Privateer_press_terrain on Instagram. You can see what we're doing as well.
It is so hard getting back into the swing of things. Like, this is our first week back after all the holidays, and everybody's just kind of like got that holiday brain going on. So setting aside that shield, it'll just cure up, and then just like I started at the beginning of the stream here, go back in after the putty's all nice and cured, and finish it up with some polishing, sharpening, cleaning. Next thing that I'm going to be working on is the little head crest for the Temple Flame Guard. I've already got a little bit of putty work going on here on this dude there. All I did was just kind of like the rim of the shield there is just a little square of putty on the top of the head.
So give me a little flat mohawk.
Yep, kind of. And we're just going to be making a bigger mohawk. And then all I got here is just a little bit of styrene. I don't know the exact thickness because I just went through our little scrap bin that we have. I don't know. Okay. And then just said that looks thick enough for what I want to do. Took a pencil and just drew the shape that I want on there. And then what I'm going to do is just clip away what I want.
Nope. Try and grab that on
sorry.
camera. Brother Chaplain Cage is saying plug Danny back into the reactor. His energy levels are too low. I can tell you from experience, Danny doesn't need a reactor. He re-energizes.
He does. We just kind of like plug him in every now and then, and away he goes.
Just kick me off into space. Like, go, Danny, go. Rile him up and just like make me make things. That's why they keep me away from everyone else. Like, no, seriously. Like, I am.
You're both by distance, isolation, and elevation.
And elevation. They put
Oh
me in
yeah,
the,
yeah.
like,
He's up in
weirdest
his own
corner.
little loft.
I have the like mezzanine, and it's just everybody doesn't want to walk up those stairs either, unless they really, really need me. Like Tony the other day was texting me from the bottom of the stairs.
Yeah, he could have looked over the mezzanine and we could have made eye contact, but I didn't want to go up, so I just started texting him.
So just using working the general to the specific, if you've ever heard that term before. Just using really big rough clippers just to kind of get the rough shape that I want. This is a very simple tweak to the model, but I think it just really adds to that, Trojan.
And that's just a emery board.
Yep.
It's a nail file. They're super useful. I use them all the
Oh,
time.
they're so good.
They're great too because you can cut them with scissors to get different shapes.
Yeah, actually, whenever we have to do super, super tiny work, Just cutting it down to get into those really fine little.
You hold that up on the camera where you cut that. Yeah.
Yeah.
So you can use the corner, and then when that gets dull, that corner, you can just cut it again.
Yep. Or what we'll often do in the shop is we'll just cut out tiny little strips of it.
Right.
And just use those to cut into the tiny little nooks and crannies and everything that we need to do.
I've also seen you guys fold sandpaper and
Grab
put 'em in
into the
those,
center of the frame there, Brian.
My bad.
put them on those like lock-in tweezers. I know Kelly does.
We've
that
done that
lot.
a few
Yeah.
times. We also we'll take a popsicle stick and just cut that up to the size that we need and glue.
Spray glue.
Yeah, spray glue sandpaper
I
onto
also
that.
have an insider on that. If you want to learn how to make your own custom sanding blocks and custom shaped sanding blocks, that exists too on our insider page.
All right. So now,
Or maybe it's on the Privateer Instagram. Maybe.
so now I'm gonna.
Oh yeah, straw poll.
Oh, yeah,
yeah,
I'm
straw poll.
just reposting the
Screw
straw-
Fizzle has a
straw
question
poll
for
anybody
Danny.
who might have
Uh-oh.
missed it.
Oh, what are we at? Reposing miniatures. Oh, look at that!
Oh, hold on. This one may not be the
oh,
updated. Where do we go? Show results. Oh, still reposing.
Running away with it.
all right. Looks like we're doing some reposes. Or I could just, pull a Jordan and just do what I want.
No, you have to start doing reposes, and then when I'm not looking, start showing people how to grind coffee, and
Oh, you want me to?
it's just way off the mark. Yeah.
Yeah, we could grind some coffee on here. I honestly don't know a whole lot about that, but carving out the little bottom section there, and this is where a lot of just kind of like guess and check work comes in. So it's just like, all right, so we need a little bit more cutting.
Come down just there.
Sorry.
You go.
Yeah,
Screw Fizzle
a little bit more out
wants
of
to
there.
know if I've started on a colossal wrestling ring. That's awesome because I just finished one.
Oh, did you?
A week ago.
Oh, you actually
yeah,
finished
it was
that?
my most recent project, and it lights up and everything, and it's got like a ringing bell and stuff. It's pretty crazy. If you go on the Instagram, you can see a decent amount of it in progress. So that's privateer_press_terrain at Instagram. But yeah, nope, that will be. I'm gonna try to bring that to Adepticon, but it will definitely be at Lock and Load for some sweet ECW.
Wait, are we actually starting like a official ECW league?
No. But people just always end up wanting to play it at night at conventions. And I had, we made that big airship. And so I had a bunch of those parts from the airship. So I just cut the 4x8s of the airship plating and have turned them into like 4 new tables in the past like month and a half, like reusing that stuff. And one of them, I did a ECW table because enough people want to play it at cons that it was time to... It was definitely time to have a dedicated table to it. It's got the
Gotcha.
big Scully in the middle and a glass, like a plexiglass plate that lights up to like reveal the middle of the board. I'm pretty excited about it.
Nice. So my glue dried up here because I had it all prepped up, ready to go.
I'm so happy the belt's coming back.
Nice.
Screwfizzle, were you the one that gave me my headband at Lock and Load? Like a bunch of people were playing ECW and they gave me like an America headband that I wore for like the rest of the con, much to everyone's chagrin. Do you remember that, Tony? Where I'm just running around with the like, U.S. flag headband. I was so tired by the end of Lock and Load that just nobody wanted to mess with me. That was the D6 studio. Well, that was awesome. I
Nice.
still have it. I'm bringing that back this year.
All right. So kind of got that glued on there. I'm kind of happy with how that looks. Yeah. Yeah, I like that.
That's sweet.
Yeah. So glued that on there, making sure that I got the right side forward and got it all glued on there. So now this is just straight up flat styrene on this, so it doesn't really have any texture or anything to it. If you go and paint that, it's not really going to have that like horsehair look. It's going to look more like a blade on his head or something like that. So what I'm going to do now instead is, where'd it go? Got, yet again, just a little sharp burr, just a little scraper tip, and we're going to go in and just create a little bit of texture on this and just do a whole bunch of scratching out lines, just like this.
Screwfizzle's talking about how he's part of the Canada team. You'll appreciate that,
Oh,
Brian. He's going
yeah.
to bring down a bunch of Canada swag for PP people.
Oh,
and for D6 Studios because they're gonna have a big throwdown with Extreme Colossal Wrestling at Lock and Load. they have a legit belt that
Really?
they hand back and forth to the winner. Yeah, no, that's like this
Nice.
is why I'm like I have to make a ring this year.
Yeah.
Wilson saw it. He was so excited about it.
That is awesome.
I also think he just loves LEDs.
Okay, so who
doesn't, man?
Who doesn't love LEDs? It's like
It just ran LED strip inside of the whole table.
I think
It's just like,
any
oh, yes.
I think any conversion just gets like, 10 to the 9th degrees better as soon as you just put an LED on it.
Just
It's
wait
like,
till Warcaster. Just wait for Warcaster.
oh, I'm waiting. I can't wait. It's gonna be so fun. I've seen some of the stuff for that, and it's like, oh, this is so exciting.
Oh, by the way, he bought off on exactly what we were talking about the other day.
Huh?
When I'm like, we're developing the style for Warcaster, and I can't go
right.
into it much, but there's something I was pushing really hard for that we'll be able to reveal shortly. But Brian and I were really, really pushing for a certain thing on the terrain, and they liked the idea, so we're very
Nice.
excited about it. We're trying to make it stand out and be different from War Machine. So I'm just like, and I can say this, but we're like, no rivets on the terrain, right?
The Riveters Guild is
The
coming
Riveters
for
Guild
you.
is dead, right?
They're so coming for you.
And Wilson's just like, yeah, let's make this stand out, right?
So, just going in with this little scratching tool, being super rough, super dirty, doesn't have to be really good. Trying to see if I got some sort of a stain or something around. Oh well, doesn't matter. Oh, there's some ink.
Piggy purple.
Piggy purple. All right. Just a little ink just to show this off. Probably the roughest thing I've ever done.
As you can see, some
Believe
of
it or
that
not,
texture
this is
popping.
not the actual brush size I use for painting anything. Yeah, so you can just really see that texture. Once this gets painted up properly and primed and all that fun stuff, it really does give that like hair texture to it. I'll also go into do the very top of the thing. Where to go?
And if you wanted to, could you do like a little bit of, I don't know, not beveling, but I mean, you can change the taper of the top or the bottom where it touches the helmet, right?
Yes.
Yeah, you absolutely could. What you do is just, where's my thing?
I would do
I'm
that with
losing a lot of stuff.
I would do it with an emery board before. I
Yeah,
attach
before
it.
gluing it on.
I would do it in a bigger sheet.
Yeah, so you got like
And then cut it after the fact. Yeah.
the little squarish shape here, and then you just taper it down.
You can do it with an emery board, or you can do that on the camera.
Yep.
Or you can do it with the rounded 15C blade.
Yeah.
I'll scrape it back with that.
Okay.
If I have to taper stuff.
Yeah, I would even take advantage of like a thicker emery board here,
Yeah.
and then just
Or you can be a crazy person like me and just use the big belt sander in the shop and just
you
hold
would you would use the giant belt sander for that.
I am very much the biggest tool for the job kind of guy. That's why I move quick, man. I'm a fast
All right.
maker. Like,
So-
I might not be a clean maker, but
That's
stuff gets
basically all we got for today, and we are actually getting to be out of time. So, going late today, awesome. Sadly, I'm needed in other projects today. They desperately need me to get some stuff going here. Really cool minis coming out soon.
cut those molds. Cut those molds.
Well, and I got some other stuff that I need to do too. But thank you everybody for watching. I appreciate everybody tuning in, all the amazing questions and discussion that we had, and hope you all enjoy your hobby adventures out there. Thank you very much.
Thanks, guys.
Bye.
Thanks for watching.